Hey everyone, and welcome. Look, I know it feels like we've been here before, right? Another government shutdown. But I'm telling you, this one is different. There's something new happening this time, something that literally changes everything for thousands of people. So we're going to break it all down, what's really going on, how we got here, and what it actually means for you. Let's dive right in. So let's get past all the political noise for a second. Beyond the finger pointing and the cable news debates, what really truly happens when the government just turns off the lights? Well, the consequences are very real, and believe me, they stretch way beyond Washington, D.C. For starters, think about all those places people love to visit. Institutions like the Smithsonian Museums, the National Zoo, they just have to shut their doors. Closed to the public, just like that. And our national parks? This is where it gets really concerning. Yeah, they might technically stay open, but with no staff on duty, they are completely vulnerable. We're talking vandalism, damage, stuff that just can't be undone. Thinking about flying somewhere, you are definitely going to feel this. We're seeing major staffing shortages with air traffic controllers, and that's causing these huge ripple effects, serious delays at major airports all across the country. And here it is. This is the big one. The thing that makes this shutdown completely unprecedented. For the very first time, we are not just talking about temporary furloughs. No, we're talking about thousands of federal employees losing their jobs for good, permanently. Okay, so first up, let's talk about how this whole mess is directly hitting daily life for millions of Americans. The disruption is it's incredibly broad. We've mentioned the museums and parks, right? But look deeper. Social security checks? Yeah, those are still going out, thankfully. But what if you lose your card and need a replacement? Sorry, you're out of luck. And the economy? Key data reports that everyone from the Fed to Wall Street relies on are just paused. They're basically flying blind. You know, this quote from the National Parks Conservation Association, it's not just talk. During the last big shutdown, we saw horrific damage. People vandalizing historic petroglyphs, even chopping down ancient Joshua trees. The fear is that we're about to see a repeat of that, or maybe even worse. It really is dangerous. Now, let's shift focus and talk about the people who are right at the very center of all of this, the federal workforce. First, you've got the furloughed employees. We're talking an estimated 900,000 federal workers who've been told to just stay home. They're not working, and they're not getting paid. It creates this immense, stressful uncertainty for their families. But then there's this number. Over 4,200 workers. They haven't just been sent home for a little while. They've been permanently laid off, as in their jobs have been eliminated, gone. So it is absolutely critical to understand the difference here. A furlough is like hitting the pause button. It's temporary. By law, those workers are guaranteed to get their back pay once the government reopens. But a layoff, what they officially call a reduction in force, or RIF, that's hitting the delete button. It is permanent. The job is gone forever. This is the new, frankly terrifying reality of this shutdown. And just look at how deep these furloughs cut. I mean, the General Services Administration, 98% of its staff is at home. The EPA is down 89% of its people. The Department of Education, 87%. These agencies have been completely hollowed out, which means their essential functions have basically ground to a halt. So how did we even get here? Let's unpack the political deadlock that actually triggered this entire crisis. It all starts with this wonky-sounding thing called a continuing resolution, or a CR. The easiest way to think of it is like a temporary patch. When Congress can't agree on a full year-long budget, they pass a CR to keep the lights on for a few more weeks or months. It buys them time to negotiate. But this time, they couldn't even agree on the temporary patch. So the whole thing broke down over three key issues. First, Democrats wanted to extend health insurance subsidies from the Affordable Care Act. Second, there was a fight over foreign aid, where Democrats basically said they didn't trust the administration not to cut funds that Congress had already approved. And then, sort of underneath it all was just this fundamental disagreement about how big the federal budget should be in the first place. That final week was it was a total cascade of failures. On September 19th, plans from both parties failed to pass in the Senate. 10 days later, a last-ditch meeting at the White House goes nowhere. By the 30th, all the legislative options were blocked, the votes weren't there, and the shutdown order was given. At 1 minute past midnight on October 1st, the government officially closed for business. And of course, the second the government closed, the focus immediately shifted from governing to an all-out political messaging war.
The Republican leadership, with House Speaker Mike Johnson out front, immediately branded this the Schumer shutdown. The message was clear. They were framing this as Democrats holding the entire country and military paychecks hostage to get what they wanted.
And the messaging got weird fast. President Trump posted this really controversial AI-generated video that mocked Democratic leaders. But maybe even more startling, official government websites, we're talking HUD, HHS, were updated with these hyper-partisan banners. That's a move that ethics watchdogs immediately flagged, saying it could violate the Hatch Act, which is the law designed to keep government resources out of politics. So, what did the American public think of all this? Well, according to a Washington Post poll taken right as the shutdown started, 47% of people blamed President Trump and the Republicans. 30% blamed the Democrats. And, this kind of follows a historical pattern where the party that holds the presidency often ends up shouldering more of the public blame. And all of that brings us to right now, where things stand today, in a long, drawn-out, unresolved standoff with really no clear end in sight. We're now dragging into the third week of this thing. The vote count in the Senate hasn't budged. They keep trying, and they keep failing to get the 60 votes they need. In fact, the House has just extended its recess, which is a pretty clear signal that a deal isn't happening anytime soon. And through it all, the administration has gone ahead with those permanent layoffs, which just raises the stakes and makes finding a way out of this even more complicated. So, beyond all the immediate problems, it just raises this much, much bigger question. When governing becomes this constant cycle of crisis and blame, what's the long-term cost? What's the damage to the services we all rely on? And maybe more importantly, to the trust we have in the whole system? That's really the question we're left with. Thanks for tuning in.